Okay, so we're gonna check in on a dozer here. This is a VR 500. I'm just gonna show you some quick tips on how to dial it in. Um, a lot easier than having to redo a whole 3D cal or anything. You can just dial this in pretty quickly. But what you want to do up here in the upper right, go into your information tab. And if you look under vehicle info tab, you have a 3D point check. What you want to do is you're going to operate the dozer and you want the left and the right northing to be exact. And that means that you are facing true north. Once both of those are the exact same number, um, rotate the tracks, point the machine true north, track it forward, a few feet to just make sure that true north numbers stay, dialed in. You might have to bump it left or right to get both of those northing values to be exact, and that just means that you're facing true north. So that's our starting point. We're going to come back to the screen, but once you have it true north, what I like to do is place the rover rod at the left tip. Just set it all up, use a bipod, take the data collector up into the cab with you, and just leave the rover head up there. And that way you have the information for northing easting elevation from site metrics grade, and you can grab it from the same place on site metrics grade, same location. You can grab the same information, and everything. So, and basically what we want to do is we want to make the easting and the elevation match. So that's what we're going to work on. So we're going to close this out, and you can leave it in the information screen. Just go to menu, we're going to cruise over to equipment setup. And of course, we're going to have our dozer. And once we get in here, so we're going to be adjusting a VR 500. So it's the Azrael. I'm on a simulator, so it's not going to be exact. But M bias is what is rotation, and that'll dial into your eastings match because that's what we want. We want our easting so small increments. It kind of shows you what to do here, but yeah, it's just rotating the VR 500 virtually to bring in the easting to match the rover. Couple of things to note that you want to be dead on with is your blade width. Number one, make sure that's exact. We need that blade width to be perfect. Um, so when we're in chassis length with height, that's nothing. Those don't really have. It just has a bearing on the way it looks. That's about it. Blade wear is very important, so make sure all these numbers are all done up right. So it will make a difference for your elevation for that blade width. So those are really important. But yeah, no, number one, height is a visual thing. Three, that's really important too. We just want to make sure that we're going to the center point, but one, super important to set this up. Chassis, like I said, not that big of a deal. So M bias will bring our eastings in to match. Now on the right, so the right is very important. It can be a negative number if you install the antenna, um, but it's based upon the center line of the machine. Um, you could take a tape measure and split the roof in half, and if the antenna's on the left side, it'll be a negative number. So that's actually really important to check out. This will help your line work match up to your tip. Is this right? Again, negative equals left number, and it's based upon the center line of the machine. So, like if you had the center line of the machine here and you measured the middle of the roof and put it to the left, you could actually take a measurement over to it. So that's actually really important to get right because, like I said, that's going to do your. So what it's going to do is it's going to project out to the cutting edge and then to the left. So that's very important. And that is if you're not matching line work. So if you're cruising up to some line work and you're not matching it, that's going to be super critical to get your right. Whatever the number is, it's going to be super critical to get that correct in there. And that's your -1. You can adjust that and go back out and see the difference. So you can adjust just that one number and see the difference and get you closer to matching line work if you want. So if you're parked right next to a known line and the rover's on that line, like it's dead nuts on the right, but your machine is a foot off, change it. That's the number you want to change to match your line work horizontally. Height is vertical. So if you're off, so your elevation is off a foot, 2 feet, 1.5 feet, this is where you change it. So we're going to change this to 10.5 feet and it drops the entire cutting edge down. So to match elevations, height is what you want to mess with to match elevations. So play with that. That one's usually pretty easy to dial in as long as you got your rover rod, matches all your control, and you got your correct rover rod height in there on your blade, and it's not matching elevation. Play with the height. Um, and then the behind, if you'll probably want to pull up onto a line, but the line is what's going to um, pull up to a line, and if the behind isn't quite right, like let's say you're trying to pull up to a line, and you're going to pull parallel to it, um, then as you're pulling up to a line, if your rover rod is dead nuts on that line, whether edge of pavement, back a curb, or something, um, but you notice there's a gap in the machine, you can play with the behind. So the behind is if your cutting edge is parallel to the line work and it's not quite matching up, that's what the behind will do. So you're gonna change that to get that to work right. M bias is going to get your eastings to match. So remember, northing, eastings, that's your rotation of the VR 500. It's your vectoring. So M bias, small changes make a big deal. Will get your eastings to match after you've gotten the northings to match, but it'll rotate the secondary antenna and it'll rotate it and pivot it around to get your eastings to match up with the rover. Again, that M bias is so that if you're following your left tip and you've got the rover on your left tip, the M bias is what you're going to play with to get the eastings to match. And again, the right is to get your line work to match. And then the behind is to get your right is your line work to match if you're perpendicular to it. So if you're trying to get a cutting edge and you're trying to cut a flow line and follow that flow line with your left cutting edge, your right is going to handle everything to do with making sure you follow that cutting edge perfectly, perpendicular to it. Behind is going to be parallel to the line, and that's going to adjust your parallel to the line. And then your height is going to change your elevation. That's what those numbers all mean, and that's how they affect, in getting the thing to dial in just to be perfect. And again, you just got to make sure the blade wearer's good. All of these are good. Um, the blade width, number one, is really important, and arm length is really important. Not like I said, not so much two. Two is just a visual aid. Nothing in a chassis is you're just gonna have a very small machine with a big blade if you get any of those wrong. And then antenna, just make sure M bias is to dial in your easting to match your rover after you've positioned the machine true north. Right is to adjust your tip to a line and your blade is perpendicular to it. Behind is if your blade is parallel, you're pulling up to the line, and height is your elevation.